You feel less. At least, that's what it feels like. Things don't hit you the same way anymore. What used to upset you barely moves you now. You don't get as angry. You don't get as excited. You don't get as affected. And part of you believes this is growth. This is control. This is strength. But something is different. Something is missing. You don't feel as much joy. You don't feel as connected. You don't feel as alive. And you tell yourself, this is what it means to be stoic. But it isn't. Most people don't arrive at Stoicism out of curiosity. They arrive there after something breaks, after disappointment, after betrayal, after realizing that people don't behave the way you expect them to, after trying to control things and failing. So they look for something stronger, something stable, something that can't be shaken so easily. And Stoicism offers that. But there's a version of Stoicism that doesn't make you stronger. It slowly disconnects you from your own life. It reduces how much you feel, how much you engage, how much of life actually reaches you. And that's why it's so appealing, because it feels like an answer. But somewhere along the way, something gets misunderstood. The message becomes simpler than it actually is. Don't react. Don't care. Detach. And slowly, that turns into something else. Not strength, but avoidance. You stop expressing what you feel. You stop engaging fully. You stop letting things reach you. Not because you've mastered yourself, but because you found a way to avoid what's uncomfortable. And it feels like progress, because the chaos is gone. The overthinking slows down. The emotional spikes disappear. But this is where the first shift happens, because what disappears is not just instability, it's depth. You begin to suppress instead of understand. You tell yourself you're in control, but in reality, you're just shutting things down. You feel something and immediately reduce it, dismiss it, neutralize it, and over time, that becomes your default. This is the first layer of the problem. Suppression disguised as strength. But it doesn't stop there. Because when you stop allowing yourself to feel fully, you don't just change your inner world. You change how you relate to everything around you. You start to disconnect. Conversations become surface level. You listen, but you're not really there. Moments pass, but they don't land. You stay neutral in situations that once mattered, not because you've gained perspective, but because you've created distance. This is the second layer, disconnection disguised as wisdom, and slowly, something else begins to form, an identity. You become the rational one, the one who doesn't get affected, the one who stays composed no matter what. And on the surface, that looks strong. But underneath it, there's something else. Because now, reacting becomes a weakness. Feeling deeply becomes something to avoid. Vulnerability becomes something you distance yourself from. And without realizing it, you start protecting that identity. You don't respond naturally anymore. You respond in a way that maintains the image. This is the third layer. Ego hidden behind control. And then, over time, everything starts to flatten. The highs are muted. The lows are softened. Nothing hits too hard, but nothing truly moves you either. You go through experiences, but you don't fully experience them. You observe more than you participate. You stay steady, but distant. And what's left feels calm, predictable, safe, but empty. You call it peace, but it's not peace, it's absence. Because real peace is not the absence of feeling. It's the ability to feel without being overwhelmed by it. And that's the difference most people miss. Stoicism was never about becoming unfeeling. It was about becoming stable. But stability is not numbness, it's clarity. And when that line gets blurred, Stoicism becomes something else entirely. It becomes a shield, a way to avoid disappointment, a way to avoid vulnerability, a way to avoid being affected. And that's where the danger is. Because the moment you stop allowing yourself to feel, you don't just remove pain, you remove everything. The highs disappear with the lows. The excitement disappears with the anxiety. The connection disappears with the risk. And what's left feels controlled, but smaller. You haven't gained control. You've reduced the range of your experience. You've made life more manageable, but also more limited. And in doing that, you've stepped away from it. This is the trap. You confuse emotional suppression with strength. You confuse detachment with wisdom. You confuse numbness with control. But none of those things are the same, because real control doesn't come from shutting things down. It comes from facing them and not losing yourself in the process. The Stoics didn't avoid emotion. They understood it. They didn't disconnect from life. They stayed fully engaged without becoming dependent on how things turned out. They could feel anger without acting blindly on it. They could feel loss without collapsing under it. They could experience joy without clinging to it. That's not numbness, that's balance. And it's much harder because it requires you to stay open, to stay present, to let things affect you without letting them control you. Which means you don't get to hide, you don't get to shut everything off, you don't get to pretend nothing matters. Instead, you have to face the full experience of life and remain steady within it. That's what Stoicism actually demands. Not less feeling, but better judgment. Not distance, but perspective. Not avoidance, but discipline. And once you see that, something shifts. You stop trying to become untouchable. You stop trying to eliminate emotion. You stop trying to control everything by reducing how much you feel. And instead, you start paying attention. You notice when you're shutting down. You notice when you're avoiding. You notice when control is just another form of fear. And in that awareness, you begin to reopen. Not recklessly, not without thought, but deliberately. You allow yourself to feel again, without giving those feelings authority over your actions. You engage again without attaching your identity to the outcome. You care again without losing yourself in the result. And that's where real strength is. Not in becoming cold, but in staying open in a world that constantly gives you reasons to close. Because the goal was never to feel less, it was to be free. And freedom is not found in numbness. It's found in the ability to experience everything without being controlled by any of it. If you'd like to explore Stoicism beyond its modern interpretations, I recommend the book The Enchiridion by Epictetus. You'll find a link for it, along a few more carefully chosen readings in the pinned comment. Ordering books from bookshop.org supports the channel and independent bookstores. Thank you for watching.